The sky above Arizona cracked with light. A strange humming noise filled the air as birds scattered and animals ran for cover. A huge silver ship floated down from the clouds. Its sides shimmered like liquid glass. Dust blew in all directions. As it landed in a wide, open desert field, soldiers surrounded the landing zone. Journalists watched from behind metal fences. Cameras rolled. The world was watching live. For the first time in history, aliens had come to Earth, and they were not here for war. They were here to compare technology. A side panel of the ship opened. A long metal ramp slid down and touched the ground with a hiss. From the shadow stepped 5 tall, thin beings with smooth silver skin and long glowing eyes. They wore sharp armor that looked like it was made of stars. The leader stepped forward. "I am Artel of the Valari Engineers," he said in perfect English, though no one saw him move his lips. "We come not to destroy, but to demonstrate. Let us see what your Earth machines can do." Colonel N, the human in charge, stepped forward. He was a tall, sunburned man with quiet eyes and a strong jaw. "Welcome to Earth," he said calmly. "We've set up a vehicle challenge. Our best off-road machines are ready. We've heard you brought your own." Artel looked around. His glowing eyes paused on the dusty army trucks and boxy jeeps parked nearby. He tilted his head. "Are those ... your vehicles?" "Yes," N said, with a slight smile. The alien leader turned to the others and made a sound like a laugh, though it echoed strangely. "These ... things, they are shaped like bricks. They use wheels? How primitive, how slow." One of the other Valari stepped forward and tapped a small button on his wrist. A giant flat object rose from the alien ship's side. It floated without, touching the ground, glowing with pale blue energy. Long arms folded out from its sides and sharp legs tucked underneath. It hovered smoothly, humming like a whispering wind. "This," Artel said, "is the Valari Pathfinder. It travels over rock, sand, water, even lava. It does not need fuel. It thinks for itself. It can repair its own parts." The soldiers watching from behind the barricade exchanged glances. Some looked embarrassed. Others looked angry. But Colonel N didn't blink. "We'll test them in the canyon area," he said. "Tomorrow, after a little weather comes." "Through." Artel raised an eyebrow. "Weather?" "Rain," N replied. "It's in the forecast." "Your weather does not concern us," the alien replied. The next morning, the desert had changed. A heavy rainstorm had hit overnight, soaking the land. The usually dry ground was now soft, sticky mud. The area near the canyon trail had become a swamp of red-brown sludge. The test began at sunrise. Cameras from Earth's top news channels were rolling. The Valari Pathfinder floated forward first. It glided easily at first, ignoring rocks and bumps. Then came the mud, with a faint whine. The hovering vehicle began to sink. The blue light beneath it flickered. Its legs unfolded and tried to balance, but they slid into the wet ground. Its body tilted, then dropped halfway into the mud with a loud squelch. Artel's eyes narrowed. "Pathfinder, rise," he ordered. The machine buzzed, struggled ... and didn't move. Meanwhile, a rusty green Jeep driven by an old army mechanic rolled forward slowly. Its wheels spun, spat out mud, but kept turning. The Jeep rocked side to side, but it moved. A cheer broke out. Among the soldiers, Artel frowned. "Impossible," he muttered. A second alien machine was deployed, a scout drone shaped like a silver disc. It hovered for a moment, then tilted forward. It shot over a small hill and into a deeper part of the trail, then instantly dropped, as the mud pulled it down like glue. In less than a minute, it vanished beneath the surface. Colonel N crossed his arms. "Mud's a funny thing," he said. "Simple wheels handle it better than anti-gravity most days." "This is not a fair test," Artel snapped. It's Earth, Anne replied. We don't make fair. We just make it work. Another human vehicle drove forward. This time, it was an old diesel-powered supply truck. It creaked and rattled but pulled a stuck alien machine from the mud using nothing but chains and steady force. The Valari engineers watched in silence. Later, one younger Valari, thinner and more curious than the others, approached a human mechanic. Your machines, they are not elegant. They are loud. Ugly, but they function. Why? The mechanic wiped sweat from his forehead. Because they're built for the worst. They're not smart, but they're tough. We don't rely on perfect conditions. We design for failure. Design for failure? The alien asked, confused. Yep, the mechanic said. You want to float? Great, but what happens when it rains? What happens when a branch jams your rotor or mud gets into your engine? The alien said nothing. That evening, the Valari gathered inside their ship. They reviewed data, rewatched footage, and argued in low tones. Artel paced silently. At last he turned to the others. We underestimated them, he said. We studied their technology, but not their world. Back outside, Colonel Anne watched the storm clouds building again over the hills. The rain was coming back. He turned to his driver, a young woman named Riva. Think they'll stay another day? She asked. Anne looked toward the alien ship, then down at the muddy track where human tire marks showed success. An alien machine sat half buried. I think, he said slowly, they just learned their first real Earth lesson. The next morning, the Valari didn't leave. Instead, they asked to see more. They visited a mountain road where human trucks carried supplies through falling rocks and narrow cliffs. They observed riverboats pushing through thick jungle water. They watched engineers fix broken vehicles with just tools and rope. Your machines, Artel finally admitted, are like your people. They should not work, but they do. Again and again. Thanks, Anne replied. We take pride in that. The Valari ship stayed for another week. During that time, 2 of their engineers began helping the human mechanics. They asked questions. They studied the old engines, the tire chains, the way humans adjusted and improvised. One night, while walking back from the camp, Artel looked up at Earth's dark sky. They mocked the mud, he whispered. But it taught us more than we expected. Just then, a loud alarm echoed from the alien ship. Lights flashed. A deep, pulsing sound filled the air. What now? Anne muttered, running toward the noise. A Valari technician appeared on a screen, his face pale. Something is rising from under the earth, he said. Another machine? Anne asked. No, the Valari whispered. Something older. The desert sun rose slowly over the canyon. The rain had stopped during the night, but the land was still soaked. Puddles of thick brown water filled the trail, and every step left a deep print in the mud. Colonel Anne stood with his arms crossed, watching the aliens prepare their machines again. Behind him, soldiers, engineers, and reporters waited with curiosity and doubt. Most of them had seen what happened the day before. Some still couldn't believe it. Artel stood calmly beside the Pathfinder, his silver armor shining in the banta. Morning light. His expression was unreadable. This time, he said softly, we show you what true machines can do. He turned to his crew. Deploy the harvester. From the belly of the alien ship, a new machine rose. It looked like a giant insect made of steel, 8 legs extended, long and sharp. The machine didn't roll, it climbed. It moved like a spider, placing its feet carefully on dry patches of land. On its back were spinning devices that looked like wings, though they didn't flap. What is that? Riva whispered, standing beside Colonel Han. They call it the harvester, Anne replied. According to their files, it's built to cross any planet's surface, including volcanic rock, ice fields, and shifting dunes. Riva raised her eyebrows. Let's see how it handles Arizona mud. The harvester began moving forward. Its legs pushed down hard, pressing through the mud, but never sinking fully. It leapt from rock to rock, stepping lightly over puddles. Cameras followed its path as it crossed the first part of the trail. Easily. Artel smiled. As you can. See, we are not limited by hover systems. Colonel N nodded, hiding his thoughts. Impressive, he said. But this is just the first test. Next, the aliens launched a second machine. This one looked like a smooth silver tube with no windows, no wheels, and no visible engines. It floated silently and moved fast too. Fast for the camera drones to keep up. It's called the Ghost Runner, one of the alien engineers explained. It uses atmospheric pressure sensors to read every surface. It can map the ground 300 meters ahead in real time. It shot over a small hill, spun around a narrow curve, then hovered high into the air before dropping gently onto the trail again. It never touched the mud. It avoided all danger, reporters murmured in awe. Even the human engineers were impressed. You? No, Riva said, leaning closer to Hen. This one actually is kind of cool. And didn't reply right away. He just kept watching the machines. A third alien vehicle arrived, this one, larger than the rest. It rolled out on 6 flexible legs and had no driver. Instead, it spoke for itself in a calm, genderless voice. I am Observer Unit 7. I am here to witness and record. I do not fail. Then it began to move. Slowly but smoothly, it started analyzing the terrain, shifting its shape as needed. When it met deep mud, it grew flat panels under each leg to avoid sinking. When it hit rocks, it lifted higher. It seemed to adjust every few seconds, reacting faster than any human vehicle could. Riva stared. Okay, that's actually scary. And said nothing. He simply looked up at the darkening clouds again. Storms coming. He finally said, behind them, the Volari engineers looked proud. Artel stood taller. Now, he said, it is your turn. A few human trucks lined up near the starting trail. Most were standard issue, old engines, mud-caked tires. Steel chains wrapped around the wheels. Some even had patches welded into their doors. Artel looked unimpressed. You brought the same machines as yesterday? No, Anne replied. Yesterday we gave you our strong ones. Today we give you our stubborn ones. First came the supply truck, heavy, old, loud. Its exhaust pipe coughed black smoke. As it rolled forward, the tires sank deep but kept turning. The truck roared as it powered through mud and climbed a hill slowly. At one point, it tilted dangerously to the left. Everyone held their breath, but it didn't fall. It corrected itself and kept going. One of the Volari muttered, "How does that thing stay upright?" A second vehicle came next to Jeep. From the 1980s, its paint was peeling. The back window was cracked, but it ran. The driver, a young mechanic named Billy, grinned as he steered it through the worst parts of the trail. It bounced, rattled, and at one point even slid sideways, but it didn't stop. The crowd of humans clapped. The alien said nothing. Then, without warning, the wind changed. The next storm hit fast. Rain poured down again, harder than the night before. The trail quickly turned into a river of thick mud. Visibility dropped. Cameras had to switch to thermal imaging to see through the rain. "Recall the harvester," shouted one of the Volari, but it was too late. The spider-like machine was caught between 2 large boulders. As it tried to lift one leg, the ground gave way beneath it. A deep pit opened, filled with water. One of its legs bent the wrong way and snapped. Alarms rang out from the alien ship. Damage detected, the harvester reported. Mobility compromised. A team of Volari ran forward, shouting commands, trying to stabilize the broken machine. But the water rose too fast. From the human side, Billy drove his Jeep closer. He stopped just outside the deepest part of the Trail, need a tow? He yelled, tossing a chain toward the harvester. The aliens hesitated, unsure what to do. Colonel Ann stepped forward. Let him try, he said. Reluctantly, the Valari attached the chain to the back of their machine. Billy reversed slowly. His jeep whined, wheels spinning, engine growling. But it moved. Inch by inch, the harvester was pulled from the mud. Cheers erupted from the human side. Even some of the aliens looked amazed. Your machines, said the younger Valari from earlier, do not have grace, but they have something else. Grit. Billy replied, it's all about grit. The Ghost Runner, meanwhile, was trying to return, but heavy winds tossed it off course. It struck a rocky ledge and tumbled into a shallow ditch. Sparks flew. The smooth shell cracked. Observer Unit 7 tried to adjust to the mud, but its internal panels began clogging. Water entered its sensor ports. It froze mid-sentence. Unable. To. And then it went silent. Artel stood in the rain, staring at the damaged machines. For the first time he looked humbled. We designed for perfection, he said softly. You designed for chaos. Ah nodded. Earth is chaos. And we've had centuries to get used to it. That night, inside the alien ship, the Valari reviewed everything again. Many of them were quiet. Others were angry. Some wanted to leave, but Artel said no. We stay, he told them. We still have more to learn. Back at the human camp, Riva wiped mud from her face and looked at Billy, who was now fixing his Jeep's front axle with nothing but a wrench and a bottle of soda. They may have better tech, she said, but we've got better instincts. Billy grinned. And duct tape. Outside, lightning flashed again over the canyon. Somewhere in the distance, a strange sound echoed low and deep, like something stirring underground. Colonel Aim looked toward the hills. We beat their machines today, he said quietly, but something tells me the real test is still coming. The third day started darker than the others. The clouds didn't break. The sky looked heavy and gray, like it was holding back something worse than just rain. Soldiers moved more slowly around camp. The alien ship, once glowing with silver light, looked dull in the stormy morning. Even the reporters had grown quieter. Colonel Hand stood near the muddy trail, hands on his hips, boots already sunk halfway in the wet earth. He looked out over the test field, now more swamp than road. Water pooled in every dip. The soil had turned into a thick reddish sludge. Looks like the desert gave up, said Riva, standing beside him. We should be testing boats, not trucks. Ann didn't smile. That's exactly why we planned today. From behind them, the Valari ship opened. The main ramp lowered slowly, covered in water. Artel appeared at the top, followed by 3 other alien engineers. They were quieter now, less proud, but their heads still held high. You still wish to continue? Artel asked calmly. Ann nodded. You came to test strength. This is where Earth fights back. With a low hum, 2 more alien machines descended. The first looked like a long-legged walker with round plates instead of feet. Its body shifted colors as it moved, blending with its surroundings. The Strider, said one Valari. It uses adaptive pressure systems. Each foot responds in milliseconds. The second machine hovered just above the ground and spun slowly, creating a faint ring of blue light beneath it. This one's called the Floater. It has terrain mapping sensors and reactive levitation. It will not sink. You sure about that? Riva muttered under her breath. Colonel Ann pointed toward the trail. Same course as before. But it ends deeper down through the gulch and into the water pit. The pit? Artel raised an eyebrow, formed overnight, and replied. Floodwater carved it out. Artel considered this. Then we begin. The Strider went first. It moved lightly at first, its thin legs touching down carefully. 1 step at a time. The ground trembled beneath it, but it didn't slow down. Each foot spread wide on contact, adjusting to the soft surface. Reporters whispered. Even Billy, the young Jeep mechanic, seemed impressed. "That thing's creepy," he said. "But it moves like it knows what's coming." It made it halfway through the trail before the problem began. The mud suddenly shifted, a deep hole forming under its left side. One leg dropped sharply, sinking fast. The machine tried to correct, but its weight pulled it down faster than its legs could adjust. "Emergency lift," said one of the aliens, tapping a control pad. The Strider's body tried to rise, spraying mud in every direction, but the leg was buried too deep. With a sharp mechanical snap, the leg twisted, then broke off completely. The machine tilted, crashed sideways, and slid into the pit. Silence followed. Artel didn't speak. His face remained calm, but the younger Velari engineer beside him shook his head slowly. The floater began next. Its glowing ring grew brighter, reacting to the challenge ahead. It moved without sound, gliding just above the surface. It avoided rocks, puddles, and unstable patches with impressive skill. But as it neared the gulch, something unexpected happened. A sudden gust of wind hit the canyon. A dust devil of water and debris lifted off the mud and slammed into the floater from below. Its levitation field flickered. It dipped slightly, just a few inches, but it was enough. The machine dropped into the gulch's edge. One side struck a jagged rock. Sparks exploded. The field failed completely. The floater slammed into the wet ground with a splash, and stayed there. The mud swallowed it slowly. Artel looked away and turned to his team. "Your turn." 3 human vehicles were ready, all older than the youngest soldier in camp. One was a military jeep, another a wide-tire truck, and the last a strange hybrid built by 2 mechanics during lockdown. Half-tractor, half-tank. They call it the Mud Dog, Riva explained. "It's ugly, but it bites through anything." The jeep went first. Its tires sank deep, but it kept moving. The driver shifted gears constantly, adjusting to every patch. Mud sprayed everywhere, but the jeep rolled on. Reached the gulch. Paused for a second, then jumped it. Barely. The crowd gasped. Next came the truck. It was heavier, slower, but its wide tires helped. It struggled in places, nearly tipping once, but it made it through. Finally, the Mud Dog roared forward. Its treads didn't spin, they gripped, like claws. It didn't stop. It didn't slide. It simply crushed its way through the trail. It didn't avoid the deep mud, it went right through it. When it reached the pit where the floater had sunk, it didn't hesitate. A winch unspooled from its back. The driver leaned out the side window and shouted, "Want me to pull your toy out?" The Velari said nothing. Chains were attached. The Mud Dog reversed, pulled hard, and lifted the cracked floater from the pit like a trapped animal. One wheel on the dog even snapped in half, but the machine kept going. No AI, no sensors. Just grit. Back at the observation post, the alien stood in silence. Artel looked at the mud-splattered jeep, the broken floater, and the disabled Strider. "We studied your technology," he said softly. "But we did not study your terrain," and nodded. "We don't build for perfect roads, we build for disaster." The younger Velari stepped forward. "Your machines are ugly, slow, loud." "They sure are," Billy said with a grin. "But they win," the alien finished. A laugh spread across the human side. That night, the Velari gathered inside their ship for a full review. Their engineers debated. Their machines were powerful, but only in controlled environments. On Earth, where nature was unpredictable, human machines had the advantage. "They plan for mud," one Velari said. "We do not." "They build for chaos," another added. "They expect things to go wrong." "They build like they live," Artel said finally. "Always ready for the worst." Back outside, Anne walked the trail with Riva, now empty and quiet. Stars were beginning to appear above the clearing storm. Somewhere behind the hills, a strange sound echoed again, low, deep, almost like breathing. "You hear that?" she asked. He nodded. "That's not thunder," she whispered. "No," he replied. "That's Earth reminding us. The real test hasn't started yet." The storm had passed, but the sky remained heavy. A strange silence lay over the canyon. The mud trail was destroyed, torn up by machines, wheels, and sinking walkers. Pools of water shimmered across the field, reflecting the soft morning light. Colonel Ann stood at the edge of the testing area. His boots squelched every time he moved. He was quiet, eyes fixed on the broken path where alien machines had failed. Behind him, human engineers prepped for another run. They didn't complain. They worked with oil-stained gloves, rusted tools, and machines older than some of their kids. "They never stop," Riva said, walking up beside him. "No matter what you throw at them." "That's why we're still here," Ann replied. Across the clearing, the Valari were repairing their machines. The harvester still sat half-sunken. The floater had been hauled out, but its systems were down. Only the Ghost Runner had survived without damage, but even it had cracked a sensor. Inside their ship, Artel stared at the screens. His eyes were narrowed. He played back footage from the last 3 tests. Machines struggling, sinking, failing. "We cannot allow this," he said. The younger Valari, Levick, spoke carefully. "We didn't expect Earth's terrain to shift so quickly. The mud isn't just wet, it's alive. It moves under us." Artel said nothing. Another Valari, taller and colder, stepped forward. "Perhaps this is not a test of machines. Perhaps. This is a test of human stubbornness." That afternoon, a new challenge was set. The humans didn't bring out their hovercrafts or drones. Instead, they brought out an old military cargo truck, paint chipped, windows cracked, engine loud. It didn't float. It didn't analyze terrain. It just moved, heavy and slow. The Valari watched with raised eyebrows. "This is your solution?" asked the tall alien. "This relic?" "It's not just the truck," Ann said. "It's what it does." The truck started forward. Its tires immediately sank, but it kept rolling. Inside, a driver and 2 engineers adjusted the gear ratios by hand. A mechanic rode on the back, checking wheel pressure through a rusty panel. Then the mud got worse. Suddenly, the truck stopped. Its rear tires spun uselessly. The crowd held its breath, but instead of giving up, the humans got out. They wrapped metal chains around the tires. One engineer placed heavy boards under the wheels. The mechanic shouted, "Try now." The driver started the engine again. With a deep growl, the truck jerked forward and crawled out of the sinkhole. Cheers rose from the human side. The Valari watched silently. "They broke their momentum," one of them said. "Shouldn't they have failed?" "They adapted," Levick said. "They didn't wait for a solution. They made one." Next, the humans brought a smaller Jeep. It had no windshield, one missing headlight, and dents on every side. A name was painted on the side in white letters, "Stubborn Mule." "That name fits," Riva chuckled. The driver, Billy, grinned as he buckled in. "Let's show the aliens what a mule can do." He drove straight into the worst part of the trail, where the strider had broken and the floater had sunk. The Jeep bounced, tilted, and nearly rolled, but Billy never slowed down. He shouted over the engine noise, "Lean with me, boys." 2 mechanics leaned their weight on the opposite side, keeping the Jeep balanced. Mud sprayed everywhere. It hit reporters, aliens, and even Ann. Nobody moved. They were frozen watching. The Jeep reached the far side and skidded to a stop. Billy raised a muddy fist in the air. "Still alive." Riva turned to Artel. "Your machines don't get out and push when they're stuck, do they?" Artel didn't answer. Later that evening, in a special meeting inside the Valari ship, engineers argued. Some said the humans were reckless. Others said they were brilliant. But all agreed on one thing. Human machines worked when they shouldn't. They run machines with broken parts, said one. They trust drivers more than sensors, said another. They do not avoid danger, said a third. They dive into it. Artel stood at the front of the chamber. We came to prove our machines superior. But today, we saw something we do not understand. Machines that aren't perfect, but keep working. Drivers who feel the terrain through their hands, not through data. Levick stepped forward. I want to work with them. I want to see how they think, what they build, how they fail and fix again. There was silence. Then slowly, Artel nodded. Then we will ask. That night, as the sun vanished behind the cliffs, 2 Valari engineers walked into the human mechanic zone. Tools clanged. Generators hummed. The air smelled like oil and fire. Billy looked up from under the Jeep. His face and arms were covered. In Greece, you guys lost again? Levick shook his head. No, we came to learn. Billy raised an eyebrow. Seriously? The Valari engineer stepped closer. Your machine, the stubborn mule, it should have failed. Yeah, Billy laughed. It does that every Tuesday. But it kept going. You kept it going. You didn't replace broken parts. You worked around them. That's called figuring it out, Billy said. We don't have the fancy stuff. We just do what works. Can you show us? Levick asked. Billy blinked, surprised. You want to help fix the Jeep? Levick nodded. Grab a wrench, Billy said. Watch your fingers. Inside the tent, Anne watched from a distance. Riva joined him, wiping sweat from her face. Aliens learning to fix a busted Jeep, she said. Didn't see that coming. Neither did they, Anne replied. The next morning, a human and Valari team worked together on a different vehicle, a strange hybrid of both designs. It had human tires, Valari sensors, and a patched-up alien engine repurposed by Earth. Fuel systems. They rolled it out onto the mud trail. Anne crossed his arms. What do you call it? Levick answered proudly. The Unity engine. It wasn't perfect. It stalled once. It sparked twice. But it moved, and it made it across. Both sides clapped out at the far end of the canyon. The wind picked up. A deep rumble echoed from beneath the hills. Not thunder. Not footsteps. Something else. Billy looked toward the sound and frowned. You hear that? Yeah, Anne said. I've been hearing it for days. The ground trembled slightly. Levick turned toward the mountain. There's something under there. Riva stepped forward. Something big? Something old, Artel said. Older than either of us. And far in the distance, the earth cracked, just a little. The real test hadn't begun yet. The sky was heavy and dark. Thunder growled far away, but the air was still. The camp lay quiet, filled with tired men and women. Machines hummed softly, but no one spoke much. Inside the alien ship, the Valari gathered in a large hall. Screens showed the mud trail and the battered human machines. Some Valari paced, others sat silently. Artel stood tall but looked tired. We came with pride, he said. With machines of perfect design and power. Yet, we are defeated by mud and rust. Levick stepped forward. We learned much from Earth's machines. Their strength is not in power, but in endurance. They expect failure. They prepare for it. Artel nodded slowly. That is our failure. We expect perfection, and it has betrayed us. Suddenly, alarms blared. Red lights flashed across the ship's walls. What now? A Valari shouted. Artel rushed to a screen. The live feed showed the distant hills near the canyon's edge. The earth trembled. A crack formed across the surface, a long deep line glowing faintly with blue light. Seismic activity? A Valari asked. No, Artel said, his voice low. Something is waking. Outside, Colonel Hen heard the alarm and ran to the edge of the camp. The ground vibrated beneath his feet. "Everyone, stay alert," he shouted. The Valari engineers gathered their tools and machines, preparing for what was coming. Riva joined N. "What do you think it is?" N shook his head. "I don't know. But it's big, and it's angry." Back at the alien ship, Artel stared at the glowing crack. "We mocked this world," he said, "but it fights back, and it will not forget." The ground split wider. From the glowing fissure, something massive began to rise. Huge shapes moved under the surface. Rock shifted. Dust rose. The humans and aliens watched in silence. Then the first shape appeared, a gigantic mechanical structure covered in mud and vines. It was old, older than anything either side had seen. Its metal was rusted and scratched, but its size was terrifying. "Is that a machine?" Levick whispered. "Yes," Artel said, "but not ours," and stared at the giant. "Looks like someone built this a long time ago," Riva nodded. "And it's waking up." The giant machine rose slowly, breaking free from the earth. Its eyes glowed red. It moved with heavy steps, shaking the ground. "This changes everything," Anne said. "We need to work together," Artel agreed. "Our pride was our weakness. Now our survival depends on learning from each other." The humans and Valari joined forces. They planned to face the ancient machine together. "First," Anne said, "we fix what we have. Then we prepare for the real fight." As night fell, the glowing crack pulsed beneath the earth. The ancient machine stood tall against the dark sky, a reminder that Earth was full of surprises. Neither alien nor human had ever faced such a threat, but together they might survive. Morning came quietly, but the tension in the air was heavy. The giant machine that had risen from the earth now stood still near the canyon edge. Its body was half buried in broken rock, its head tilted like it was listening. Nobody knew what it was, or if it would move again. Colonel N looked at it through binoculars. "Still no movement," he said. "Maybe it's charging up." Riva replied. Artel stepped beside them, his silver eyes narrowed. "Whatever it is, it's watching us." Behind them, humans and Valari engineers worked together. They had spent the whole night fixing machines, welding parts, adjusting wires. The Unity engine, the hybrid vehicle built from both human and alien tech, stood ready again. "We need to take it somewhere worse," Anne said. "Somewhere even that machine can't reach us easily." "The swamp?" Levick asked. Anne nodded. "Yes, the swamp zone. It's harsh, it's wet. It eats machines." "Perfect," Levick whispered. The swamp zone lay deeper inside the canyon valley, low ground where rainwater gathered. Thick trees, deep puddles, and crawling vines covered the land. Fog clung to the ground like it was alive. They began moving. At noon, 2 human jeeps led the way, followed by the Unity engine and 2 Valari scouts. The last vehicle was a heavy truck pulling supplies and gear. "Stay close," Anne warned through the radio. "And keep the sensors running. Anything could be out here." The deeper they drove, the darker it got. Tree branches curled above the path. Water splashed under tires. The mud here was black and deep, and it smelled like rot. "I hate this place," Riva muttered, steering through a tight turn. "You're not alone," Billy said through the radio. "I think the swamp hates us too." Levick, riding inside the Unity engine, stared out through the fogged window. "We have nothing like this on Velar. This place kills machines," An said. "Even ours." The Valari scout moved ahead. It hovered slowly, lights scanning the swamp. But only 20 meters in, it tilted sharply to one side and dropped into a pool of black water. "Scout 1 is sinking." A voice cried through the comms. "Pull it back." Artel shouted. The Unity engine reversed and deployed a cable, but it was too late. The Valari scout vanished under the surface with a hiss and a final flicker of light. Silence followed. Levick looked at Still want to keep going? Han gave a firm nod. Especially now. They pushed forward. An hour later, another problem hit. The heavy truck at the rear suddenly stopped. Its back wheels spun wildly. Mud climbed halfway up its doors. Rear vehicle is stuck. Someone shouted. Billy arrived in the stubborn mule and jumped out with chains in his hands. Again? He said. It's always the back one. He attached the chains and yelled, "Give it gas." The Jeep pulled hard, wheels throwing mud in every direction. The truck groaned, tilted, and then finally popped free with a loud splat. "Move it!" Billy shouted. The swamp seemed to get deeper with every mile. Strange noises echoed through the trees. At one point, a branch moved by itself. Riva swore she saw something large slither under the water. And then it happened again. This time, the Unity engine's scanner froze. The display glitched. Warning lights flashed. "We're losing power," Levick shouted. "Water breach?" Anne asked. "Negative," said Artel. "Something is interfering." They opened the hood. The hybrid system buzzed strangely. The alien tech inside it was overheating. One module had melted from exposure to swamp gas. "Can we fix it?" Riva asked. Billy pulled out duct tape and a screwdriver. "Let's find out." Together they rerouted power, bypassed 2 alien circuits, and jammed cooling fans under the hood. "Start it up," Anne ordered. The engine coughed, then came alive. Artel blinked. "That should not have worked." Billy shrugged. "Shouldn't have. But it did." They drove another half-mile into the swamp, and then the fog lifted. They reached a small dry clearing in the middle of the swamp. Flat ground surrounded by twisted trees. "A good place to stop. We make camp here," An said. As night fell, the crew set up lights and a communications tower. Valari engineers scanned the area for threats. The humans cooked canned meals over hot engines. "I never thought I'd be eating next to aliens," Riva said, sharing her food with Levick. "Me neither," Levick said. "But I prefer this over watching another one of our machines drown." Laughter spread quietly through the camp, but then the ground shook again. Not far from the swamp, something was moving. "Sensor alert," a Valari shouted. "East direction something. Large." "Is it the giant machine?" Anne asked. "Too small, but moving fast, toward us." Everyone grabbed weapons. The Unity engine powered on. Lights swept the swamp. For a few seconds, all was quiet. Then from the mist, something ran toward them. A shape humanoid, tall, covered in moss and bark. Its eyes glowed orange. "What is that?" Levick whispered. "It's not one of ours," Anne said. The figure stopped 20 feet away. It looked like a machine, but built from stone and wood. As if Earth itself had made a robot. The strange figure pointed at the camp, then turned and walked away into the trees. "What was that?" Riva asked. "I don't know," Anne replied. "But I think it was a warning." Artel stepped forward. "This swamp, it's not just mud and water, it's alive. Something old is protecting it." Suddenly, the radio crackled. "Unknown signal," said a Valari tech. From beneath the swamp. They traced the signal to a hill near the swamp's edge. Beneath it, another machine, sleeping. "The giant from the canyon isn't the only one," Anne said quietly. "There are more." They stood together. In silence, human and alien. The swamp was just the beginning, and Earth had more secrets buried beneath its skin. The camp in the swamp clearing was quiet. Morning mist drifted through the trees. Water dripped from twisted branches. The only sound was the soft hum of machines warming up and quiet footsteps in wet grass. Inside a small tent, Colonel Ein looked at the map. Riva stood beside him, her arms crossed, a frown on her face. "2 buried machines," she said. "One we woke by accident. The other is still under the swamp. Maybe more," Anne replied. "We don't know how many are sleeping under this planet," Riva tapped a spot on the map. We need to go around the ridge. That's the only high ground left. Anne nodded. And we can't risk triggering another machine. Outside, the Valari were working with human engineers. Billy showed Levick how to clean spark plugs using a toothbrush and motor oil. Your tools are so primitive, Levick said. Yours are too fancy, Billy replied. Break one chip, and the whole thing dies, Levick smiled. That's what I'm starting to understand. In another tent, Artel stood with his most trusted engineer, Varanox. They watched the humans through a dusty window. You said they were reckless, Artel said softly. They are, Varanox replied. But maybe that's why they survive, Artel nodded. We were proud, too proud, and that blinded us. He walked out into the mud, where Anne was speaking with Riva and a scout. Anne, Artel said. May I speak with you? Of course, Anne replied. The two leaders walked toward the edge of the clearing, where fog still hung low. You were right, Artel said. This world is chaos, and we weren't prepared. Anne looked at him, and Artel turned to face him fully. You have our respect. You earned it, not because you beat us in a challenge, but because you survived everything this planet threw at you. Anne nodded slowly. And I'll say this, you Valari are fast learners. The two men shook hands. For the first time since the aliens landed, it was not a contest. It was cooperation. Later that day, the Unity engine led the way through the swamp. Beside it rolled a human truck, and behind it floated a repaired Valari hover scout. The team was mixed, now humans and Valari riding together. Billy rode with Levick. They argued over fuel pressure and engine heat the whole way, but both were smiling. You ever drive before? Billy asked. Only in simulations, Levick replied. Billy handed him the wheel. Then let's make it real. Far ahead, Riva and Artel scanned the ridge with a drone. It hovered above the trees, sending back foggy images. I think there's a cave system beneath that hill, Riva said. Where the signal came from? Artel asked. Exactly. And stood behind them. Let's find out what it's hiding. The team moved carefully up the ridge. Vines clung to their boots. Insects buzzed around their heads. The ground felt strange soft, but firm underneath. Like something weighted below. Then they found the opening. A round tunnel, partly covered by roots and moss. Black as night inside. Cold air poured out of it like breath. This wasn't made by nature, Riva whispered. No, Artel said. It's too perfect. Anne raised a flashlight. Let's go. Inside the tunnel, walls were smooth metal. Symbols lined the sides, neither human nor Valari. They look older than both our languages, Artel said. Someone was here before any of us, Riva added. As they moved deeper, a soft hum filled the air. Machines still lived here, ancient ones. Something was still running in the dark. Suddenly, the lights flickered. The floor shook. A voice not human, not Valari, echoed through the tunnel. Deep, slow, cold, unrecognized presence. State your origin. Everyone froze. Levick spoke first. We're explorers. Peaceful. There was silence, then the voice spoke again. Biological and synthetic systems detected. Earth Defense Protocol active. Defense Protocol? Anne asked. We should leave, Riva said. But before they could move, lights snapped on around them. The walls lit up. A large chamber opened ahead, filled with machines the size of houses. Dormant, but breathing, waiting. This is a bunker, Artel said. A war bunker. Suddenly, holograms lit up above them. Glowing figures, strange, tall, faceless, speaking in an ancient language none could understand. Then it switched to English, Earth Core Directive. Status: hostile presence detected. AI reactivation pending. Hostile? Anne said. We're not enemies, but they don't know us, Riva said. They don't know anyone. They've been asleep. For thousands of years. The lights grew brighter. One of the machines in the chamber began to hum louder. "We need to shut it down," Artel said. "Fast," agreed Billy, and Levick stepped forward. "I know that sound," Billy said. "It's a power surge." Levick grabbed his toolkit. "I think I can reroute the startup command." Together, they crawled beneath the console, cutting wires, connecting ports, and typing into an ancient interface. 15 seconds. Someone shouted, "We're not gonna make it." Levick yelled dot, then Billy reached into his pocket and pulled out a fork. "What are you doing?" Levick asked, shorting the relay. Billy replied. He jammed the metal into a gap, and the machine powered down. Silence. Total silence. Then the lights dimmed. The room relaxed and let out a breath. "Good thinking." Billy grinned. "Not bad for Earth junk, huh?" Artel stared at the shutdown core. "You saved us. Again," Riva smiled. "This time together." As they walked back out into the light, the swamp didn't feel as threatening. The fog was still there, the mud still clung. But now something had changed. The aliens didn't just respect the humans, they understood them. And for the first time, the Valari didn't feel superior. They felt equal. That night, both groups gathered around a fire, humans with mugs of coffee, Valari with glowing liquid from silver flasks. Anne stood and raised his cup. "To survival," he said. Artel stood beside him, "and to respect. Earned through struggle." Everyone cheered. The swamp whispered in the distance. The earth watched, but now it smiled. The stars above the swamp were strange that night, dim, quiet, almost as if they were waiting. Colonel Hines stood by the Unity engine, arms crossed, watching the trees. Riva approached, a worried look on her face. "You feel that?" she asked. "The stillness?" Anne nodded. "Yeah, too quiet." Behind them, Valari engineers sat with human mechanics around a small campfire. For once, they weren't working. They were laughing, sharing stories, passing tools like they were gifts. Billy leaned over to Levick. "I still think your hovercrafts are weird, and your jeeps are suicidal," Levick smiled. "But I respect them now." Just then, the ground trembled. Not a shake, a pulse. All laughter stopped. Heads turned. Lights flickered. "Status?" Anne barked. "Seismic spike," a Valari technician called out. 4 miles west. Levick's face paled. "That's near the first buried machine, the big one." "Didn't we already wake it?" Billy asked. "No," Artel said, stepping forward. "We woke its shell. What's coming now is its mind." Everyone froze. Another pulse hit the earth. Louder, deeper. Water rippled across the mud. Then, in the distance, a sound like metal scraping stone echoed across the valley. From the far hill, a shape rose taller than the trees, larger than anything they had faced. The last machine. Its body looked like the earth had grown around it, roots tangled around its arms. Broken towers rose from its back. But its eyes were alive now, burning white, watching. "Is that a weapon?" Riva whispered. "It was," Artel said grimly. "A planetary guardian." "Guardian?" Anne asked. "Of what?" "Of Earth," Artel replied. "From us. From anything that didn't belong." The machine stepped forward. The swamp shook. Lights died. And then it spoke, not in words, but in a voice that vibrated through the ground and into every mind. "Intruders, prepare for removal." Weapons powered up on its arms. Massive cannons. Spinning cores. The air grew hot around them. "Run!" Someone yelled. Everyone scrambled, but Anne didn't move. "No, we don't run. Not this time." He turned to Artel. "How do we stop it?" "You don't," Artel said. "You reason with it." "How do you reason with a mountain that wants to kill you?" "By proving you're not here to harm," Artel said. "We have to show unity." Suddenly, Levick ran to the Unity engine. "We built something together. That's our proof. He powered it up. Lights came on. Systems booted. The human-alien hybrid machine roared to life. What are you doing? Riva shouted. Sending a message, Levick said. Billy jumped into the driver's seat. I'm not letting you drive alone. The Unity engine rolled forward. Toward the last machine, the giant aimed its cannons. Everyone held their breath. Then, Levick activated the core. Blue energy flowed through the vehicle. Signals shot out Earth frequencies mixed with Velari language. One word repeated in every system. Peace. The last machine paused. Its cannon stopped glowing. Then, slowly, it lowered its arms. Everyone waited. Finally, the voice returned. Alliance recognized. Observation mode activated. The giant turned away, walked back into the swamp, and disappeared into the fog. Silence returned. But this time, it was peaceful. Levick and Billy stepped out of the Unity engine, mud up to their knees, shaking but smiling. That was close, Billy said. No, Levick replied. That was trust. Hours later, humans and Velari stood side by side on the ridge, watching the sun rise. What now? Riva asked. We report what we found, Artel said. And we never forget it. Will your people believe this? Anne asked. Artel smiled. They will now. Behind them, Earth returned to stillness. The swamp healed. The fog lifted. And the ancient machines slept once more, because now they weren't alone.